Hi everyone, welcome to the contributors meeting. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Leo. I'm starting off with a triage discussion. Last week we had myself and Justin. I took a look at the issues this morning. Nothing major. The only thing that stood out for me was this particular issue here. So the user was complaining about increasing CPU in 2.8, right? So I did some investigations, asked a few things and discussed a little bit with Michael. And he provided a pprof file, so it's clear the problem that he's facing is related to the diff calculation. And I replied back to him saying that I suspect that once the cache is rebuilt in 2.8, the situation will be normalized. I just wanted to bring it up to ask if someone in the chat in this call had similar behavior with 2.8. We are running 2.8, heading to it, and we didn't notice a general increase in CPU. So is anybody else facing issues with 2.8?
I think there was there was another thing that was, I guess, found by Alex recently, a mem leak, but I'm not sure. So this graph looks a little bit different than what Alex found. I think Alex traced it down to open telemetry.
Okay. Yeah, that's different perspective. This is here we see exactly what are the functions that are taking a lot of
but this is time. CPU, right?
CPU, yeah.
But the reporter also complained about mem. Oh no, it's only CPU. Sorry. Then
yeah,
I was thinking from the description I saw that that's also like memory.
Yeah, no, it's mainly CPU.
There is a large increase in CPU and memory usage, he says, or they say.
Right. Yeah, from the P profile, I looked at the CPU usage and found that the diff calculation is consuming a lot of CPU in his case.
In the graph above, it looks like it stabilizes, doesn't it? It looks like there's a spike in the beginning. And
no, this is when they reverted to the previous version.
Oh, it's when they reverted, not when you can see. Got it. Okay, got it.
So I replied back to him. I was mainly curious to know if someone else had a similar behavior, if you folks are already on 2.8 or not, but that's it for me. Okay, moving forward. Justin is not in the call, it seems. No. Okay, so let's elect the next person on triage for next week. We don't have a lot of people in the call.
I can volunteer.
Cool, thanks, Dan.
I'll probably need to jump off the call. I have a meeting starting shortly, but I wanted to join and volunteer for the issue triage next week. So
cool, thanks a lot, Dan. Any volunteers for secondary?
I'll do secondary.
Okay, Christian, thank you. All right. Okay, so with that out of the way, we have one topic for discussion, which is a proposal by May. I see her in the call. So May, you want to say a few words about this proposal?
Yeah, thank you, Leo. I'm Mei Zhang from Intuit, and today second I want to share this proposal of self-service notification for Argo CD, and so we can seek the feedback and recommendations from our contributors. So I'll start with the summary and the motivation, and Zach will cover the proposal. So the summary is So this proposal will enable application team to have their own configuration of Argo CD notifications. So we also call it a self-service notification. So the application team will be able to receive notifications from the default configuration as well as their own configuration. So the motivation behind this, as of now, the configuration for Argo CD notification is centrally managed. Only Argo CD admin can make notification configuration changes. So when application teams use PagerDuty v2 for their notification service, every application team need to create an integration key for the service in their PagerDuty. And then Argo CD admin need to add that integration key to Kubernetes secret and also need to modify config map to add a reference to that secret. So when there are many application teams want to use PagerDuty v2 for their notification service, they all have to go to Argo CD admin, and this does not scale. And there are also teams want to control their notification templates and triggers. So they are independent of what Argo CD admin has configured. So we want to enable application teams' ability to configure their own notification configuration. And Zach, do you want to start?
Yeah. So if you just scroll down a tiny bit more so you can view the image, the general idea for the proposal on how this would be implemented is basically to follow the pattern, the apps of any namespace model somewhat. This does add kind of a new configuration style to Argo CD, where we would basically teach the notification controller how to interpret the configuration for apps, like how basically teach it Argo CD's command line flags for the list of namespaces to use to that are allowed to basically have apps in them. And then the notification controller would look at the metadata.namespace of the app and find the statically named config maps and secrets that coincide with the app and use that for the notification configuration and secrets. And then it would still also use the default configuration that lives back in the Argo CD namespace as well. And then if we scroll down, we kind of look at the use cases. I think that kind of explains it more directly as well. Let's scroll down just a little bit to the use case. So basically, can you just scroll down a little bit more, Leo?
Sure.
Yeah. So the first use case is what May went over, the PagerDuty one. The examples kind of make it clear. And the main thing to point out is that, so this application here is living in the namespace, some namespace. Now we have the config map and the secret as well that live in the exact same namespace as the application. So the notification controller would then go and find those two configurations and use those for notification configuration. Yeah, that's kind of the general implementation. And if you scroll down a little bit farther to the bottom of this, the other use cases that we talked about would be, custom templates and custom triggers. Users just wanting to change the message format or, what gets triggered on a particular thing, like May mentioned. There are some security considerations that we've thought about. So basically, the security model that we implemented here is kind of a GitOps first security model. The Argo CD admin is basically expected to use the apps in any namespace to permit the users to deploy applications, config maps, and secrets in their team's namespace. It kind of extends the multi-tenancy by namespace design for just applications and possibly additional items of configuration, today just being notifications, notification configurations and secrets. The risk consideration is basically that, Argo CD has a few different ways to configure things. Some of them are via, app projects. Some of them are via app spec stuff, environment variables. This kind of adds a whole new pattern to giving users the ability to self-serve or self-configure, but it does align itself with apps have any namespace. We basically also went through a couple alternatives. They all seem to be, I don't know, less GitOpsy and drift a little bit more away from the Kubernetes ecosystem and kind of go more into Argo CD API style versions. So we kind of liked the proposal of using a more GitOps Kubernetes native configuration pattern that could be extended possibly to other config items within Argo CD. But the three alternatives here would be allowing self-service notifications to be configured by the API, segmented by projects. This isn't very GitOpsy. We could associate notification configs with an app project instead of the application's namespace. It could still be GitOps, but you know, there would be different, depending on how we associated the config to the app. And then notification configs with an application directly. So basically add the notification config stuff to an application itself instead of you know, using the application's namespace to pull those configs and secrets from. Yeah, so just kind of looking for feedback on what people think of adding this new-ish configuration model to Argo CD.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Thanks, May. Any comments on the proposal? So the main idea is to add the ability for application developers to drive subset of configurations in their application, not having to depend on Argo CD admins to do so. Any comments? Any concerns? Anyone?
I just have a comment, I guess.
Okay.
So I like this. I think it's just the natural evolution of anything in any namespace, right? I mean,
Yep.
if we're looking into the future, we may even at some point in time have repositories in the namespace, sort of like repository configurations in namespaces or
Yep.
something like that. So yeah, I was just wondering, like, if we'd be to impose any like if we thought about like extending what we have in app project now, like, you know, we can restrict in the app project the destinations and, you know, the repositories that are allowed to use and stuff like that. And do we want, like, if we bring this to users, basically all this kind of configuration, have we thought about like restricting them to what they will be allowed to use from notifications configuration? Let's say, you know, when that application is targeted to project foo, then they only are allowed to use the PagerDuty service and not whatever is configured in the notifications controller as methods of configuration.
Yeah.
Is
So
that something we thought about, or?
So I don't necessarily know if it applies to notifications config per se. So with this proposal, and maybe you're aware of how regular notifications work. So we still have the default config that lives on like the admin side, right? The applications could individually subscribe to, right? But as far as the restriction of like Argo CD doesn't have the concept today even of being able to like do individual, like if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're basically saying don't allow users to use a particular notification service within their self-service config map, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm thinking like, you know, if you have a service that sends SMS,
Yep.
you know, that probably costs money to send SMS, and you know,
Yeah.
if so, just and it's maybe it's restricted to particular very important apps that you know that you definitely want your manager or whatever receive an SMS if it's down.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just like to prevent some because you hand out control to the user of
Dude.
all this stuff, right?
Yep. Yep.
So that I was wondering if we have thought about like, you know, restricting abuse. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I'm not very well versed in how notifications actually work. So that's
Sure.
just like you know,
Yeah,
just a thought.
No, that's fair. And I think with the proposal today that doesn't exist, you would have to basically teach Argo CD the support, like notification engine today is basically a whole separate library, a whole separate project that can be used for anything, and Argo CD just uses it as its own controller, and the Argo CD itself has no concept of what anything in that config map is today. So that would, I like it. That's almost like a new permission, right? A new RBAC model around that would have to be tied to the project, but then you have to teach Argo CD what each all the services that are supported and for notification engine, etc. And I mean, it would be doable, but I don't know if I don't know if it's worth it without like other people requesting the feature, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was not talking about RBAC or something like that. Just like some kind of place where you could limit, you know, it doesn't have to be in the app project. So I
Or
mean,
maybe do it at the notification library level. Then
yeah, maybe
have
there,
like
yeah, sure.
have like an exclude
Yeah.
list of services or an allow list of services. That's fair. I think that would be a separate feature request to the notification engine library, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it could work similarly to the way app projects currently restrict apps in external namespaces. We just have an Argo CD central namespace thing, a config map or whatever that contains those restrictions. And people can put whatever config they want in their namespace, but that doesn't mean the notifications controller is going to respect it.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. Yeah.
I didn't follow that quite, Michael. What was that?
So I'm not exactly sure what kind of restrictions would make sense for notifications controller, but let's say you're only allowed to push to PagerDuty and not Slack.
And not our webhooks or whatever. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you just put that in the notifications controller central config map. You say any apps in namespaces matching this glob are not allowed to push to Slack.
Yeah, but that's all work on the notification engine library, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So basically it's a new feature for notification engine, not necessarily Argo CD, but I mean they play with each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Does it make sense to add this in the current proposal, at least as a note? Not sure. How do you feel, Yan?
To me, it seems like an issue on notification engine would be worth creating. I don't know if it belongs in, like, I don't like that idea of tightly coupling notification engine to Argo CD because other projects use notification engine.
Right.
So
it's fine to add a note that's just like, you know, we understand that at some point we may introduce stuff in any namespace, and that stuff needs to be restricted according to certain rules. Like, we understand that we could enforce those restrictions either by adding new fields to app project or just new fields to other config maps in the central Argo CD namespace. Like, that's where all the rules come from.
Sure. Sure. Generalize it to just future ideas.
Which brings me my next question. So this proposal is providing the example of PagerDuty, right?
Yeah.
But if we want to have additional configuration to be consumed by Argo CD, would this proposal be preparing for that, or this is just targeting
Yeah.
PagerDuty?
Not from a this proposal covers the use case 100% for notifications engine from a technical perspective. So users have full control of the config map, right? They can do anything, but it lays the, I don't want to use the word foundation, but because from a technical implementation, there's no other thing, but it lays the idea of moving other configuration to self-service within the namespace of the application. It sets up that like idea for things other than notifications to live in the same namespace that the app lives in.
Right. Okay. So the current feature will be actively looking for a specific config map.
Yeah, so like what would, yep. So today it looks for Argo CD notification CM in the same namespace that the notification controller runs in. Now we're just teaching it to look for that config map in the same namespace that the application lives in.
Right.
Yeah, the content of what's in config map and secret is the same. We do not have any limitations.
That's
I
a
see.
good call to the using OPA to do those policies as well is a workaround. In the Zoom chat that guy was posted.
All right. Anything else? Any other comments regarding this proposal?
I have a question if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so for services and like for this new config map, are we expecting to like inherit like the like the admin version of like a service and then we just like override specific like fields of that map, or
Yeah, so they don't merge. Technically, they run. You can think of them as running in parallel. So, because there's this concept of global notifications as well, where the admin can basically, an application doesn't have to subscribe to the notification, but the admin can basically apply a global list. That applies as well. So basically, it just runs the two config maps in a loop. You can think of it, right? It'll process the one, send all the notifications, go look at the default, send all the notifications that match, and then go on about its way. So technically, if they had two that had the same services, it would send them twice.
I see. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, anyone? All right. Thanks, May. Thanks, Zach. Thanks everyone for your comments. Let's go on. Let's see. Yeah, this was the only topic for today. If anyone has a last minute topic you want to discuss, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I wanted to ask for a review if it's possible. I sent the link in the chat.
Okay, can you explain what is this, George?
Basically, when the multi-source support was added, the rollback was disabled for multi-source applications. If you scroll down a bit, you will see some pictures about the final status. Basically, this PR enables the rollback feature for applications based on multiple sources. That currently is disabled. So it's just for asking a review if it's possible.
That's cool. That's a cool feature.
Yeah, I asked because I prefer to not having to rebase again the code, if it's possible.
I know that it's tedious to rebase when a lot of new
it was
comes in, right? But
tedious.
yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big PR, so probably needs a pretty thorough review.
Yeah, for sure. No rush at all.
No, but yeah, thank you for raising the attention to this, because yeah, I guess it's
Yeah, there are a lot of changes. It's not an easy review, so take your time, keep all the comments that you want, and we can iterate over the solution.
All right. Thanks, thanks, George, for letting us know. Yeah, as Michael said, we need lots of hands, especially in the review area for the project. All right. Anything else?
Hey,
Anyone?
hi, Shiddesh here. I would like to bring up this enhancement issue. I've pasted the link in chat. So it's about pruning of resources with sync wave during sync operation. There was a issue which was brought up a couple of weeks back in contributors meeting related to this, where the resources with sync waves are not getting cleaned up properly due to during sync, because it follows the creation order even when we perform a prune of the resources. So based on the discussions from the issue, I was thinking of introducing a reordering logic in GitOps engine, so that during sync we prune the higher order resources first, and also add a wait so that the resources are actually diluted before moving to the next wave. Just wanted a feedback on this.
Yeah, I worked briefly with this sync waves. There is already an ordering applied in GitOps engine. Not sure how that is reflecting whenever there is a prune. Did you
So it's
you done the
yeah,
investigation already?
it follows the creation order during pruning.
Oh, okay.
So there is
The creation order. And the
You want to
suggestion is to
reverse it. I
so
think.
for deletion, we should reverse the order.
I see.
I think there's two scenarios, right? Like, because I remember there was a bug recently about the deletion order when sync waves are used, and I think there's a difference in behavior when you. So there's two scenarios, right? One is you delete the application in a cascading manner, so that all resources will be deleted. And then there is the second scenario, is that when you make a change in Git that removes a resource or two resources, right? I think that's two different things. And I guess one of them implements this reverse logic and the other does not, right?
Yeah, true. So when we
Yeah.
delete the application, the resources are deleted in reverse order of the sync waves.
And so
But
just when you delete them from Git, right? Then
go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, I was finished. Thanks. Sorry. So
all right. And are you willing to pick up this task? Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah. So I just wanted to get a feedback before I start implementation.
Right.
yeah, I guess it's totally awesome if you do that. I mean, it just makes sense from my point of view, at least, that even in those scenarios where resources are deleted from Git, then also that order is obeyed, right?
So just wanted a view on whether we should have this behavior as default or opt-in kind of behavior.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because if we wait for resources, especially during cleanup.
I feel like
Yeah, we already have issues with finalizers while deleting resources sometimes. So if we're pruning them first, we might block the sync.
I think that's a good idea though, right? Like that's kind of part of, like, it feels like a natural reversed order and deletion like should be defaulted, right? Like I just feel like that's what
Yeah.
would be expected. You know, you
I-
roll forward and then you delete backwards. Like that just like, and then you would want it to block, right? Like you'd want to delete wave 5, and then if something happened there, you wouldn't want it to continue.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, would you? I don't know. Because really, if you think about it, maybe you wouldn't actually, because if you consider if you're doing waves, your wave 5 would be like your higher priority one. So maybe some people would want it to go in the right order. So if wave 5 is like your production environment and wave 1 is your non-prod, and you want to delete, some people might actually want to delete non-prod first. So maybe it does need to be a configuration. Prune order.
But the prune is marked on the sync, not on the wave, right? So the whole sync is marked as prune. So for you to do this reordering, you have to iterate over all waves and see if there is any resource that was deleted and do that out of the sync order.
Yeah. And do it in wave order, basically. So basically, if something, you know, gets stuck in non-prod or whatever, you don't continue on to the next one.
So for example, if you have 5 waves and then wave, not 5, but 3, maybe simplify, right? And then wave 2 has a resource that was deleted. So how this should proceed?
I think it would check wave 0. That you just need to be able to control the order of which way it goes, right? Whether it goes
forward. Wave 1, 2, 3, and so forth, right? So this is the way it goes when when Argo City is syncing. What I'm saying, what I'm asking is, so in wave 2, there is a resource that was deleted.
Yep.
So how this logic will be applied?
I think the logic for deletion should be configurable with a reverse option and a forward option, depending on how people are using waves, right? So if you want to go revert, like just have a config that says prune order or something, then it would check wave 3 if anything's deleted. If you have it in reverse, then go to wave 2 if anything's deleted, and go to, you know, the last wave. And that way, if anything gets, you know, stuck or ordering is important there on the pruning, they would do that. But I think for the prune, that should be a configurable option just due to, you know, some people using waves for different environments.
Yeah, makes sense.
I also wonder if you remove certain waves and that causes your service to be down, you probably want to still continue and delete other waves because just the service is in a bad state. For example, if your second wave is, I don't know, a load balancer or something like that, and you, like, you know that your service is down for some sort of reason.
Yeah, I also think that, I mean, you know, that in sync the wave behaves like it waits for that wave for all the resources to become synced and healthy, right? And in deletion, that just doesn't make sense, I guess. But we should just follow that reverse order and probably use the you know, foreground deletion procedure. Like just wait until the API tells you, okay, go ahead, this has been deleted.
I still don't understand the reverse order. So if we have four waves and there is a resource that was deleted in wave 3, in which moment this deletion will happen if we do it in reverse order?
Yeah, I think it's just like, you know, if you, I would assume that if you have, let's say, these 5 waves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
And let's say you delete a resource that belongs to wave 5, and you delete a resource that belongs to wave 3, and you delete a resource that belongs into wave 1, like all with one commit, you remove them from Git.
Right.
Then it's just like the one that was in 5 gets deleted first, then 3, then 1. right? Like just in that order. I think there's nothing much more to the deletion. It's just like,
But you
You
do
know,
all the deletions first, and then you proceed with the normal sync.
yeah, that's usually how it works, right? Like first is like, except you have set prune last, right? So usually Argo CD prunes before it syncs new resources. That's the default behavior, right? And except I think you can configure Argo CD to move the pruning phase to after the sync.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I could see that being, that ordering being somewhat important with like certain AWS resources, right? Like if there's so many CRDs and types out there that sometimes that ordering is important for those external resources. So having some control over that makes sense.
All right. Okay, anything else related to this? Okay. Time is it? We have still a few more minutes. Anyone else wants to bring another topic? Not? Well, have a great rest of your day and see you all next week. Bye all.
Bye.